Let's try to solve this question. Now you can understand the question given is we have to identify the errors, if any, in each of the following declaration or initialization statements. Okay, so let's start one by one. Okay, so I hope you have gone through the previous two videos where I discussed declaration and initialization in depth. If you haven't, please find the links to the videos in the description below. You please go through those videos so that you'll be able to understand the solving process even better. So let's start. So here we have question number A. Now see what is given here. We are declaring an array, of course. Now the data type is mentioned. There is a built-in type int, no issues. Score is a legal identifier, no issues there. But what about the size? The size is 100. That's fair enough. But the size should be enclosed within box brackets, right? Because the box brackets are what the compiler uses to identify a name to be an array. That means using the pair of box brackets, the compiler will understand that, okay, score represents an array and the type of the array is int. That means this array can store only integer values. So the first declaration statement is incorrect, right? And how can you correct it? Yeah, let's try to correct it. Let's try to correct it. So we would write int score, within box brackets we would write 100. That does it. Okay, so number A is taken care of. Now let's look at number B. Now let's look at this. So we have float, a data type, a built-in data type, no issues. Values, okay. Now look at this, 10, 15. Can I do this? I cannot. Within one pair of box brackets, I can specify only one size. What they're trying to do here is trying to include two dimensions. So what this should be done, how this should be done is float values. So I have two values, right? 10 and 15. So each of them should be in separate dimensions. That means this is a matrix with 10 rows and 15 columns. Remember, this represents the number of rows and this represents the number of columns. Okay, so that takes care of number B. Now let's look at number C. Now here, one thing that has not been mentioned in the question is that row and column, these are symbolic constants. That means somewhere above we have statements like this. Somewhere above we have two statements, hash define, let's say row, let's give it a value 5, and hash define column, let's say 3. Okay, fine. Now if you remember, if you have gone through the previous video, then we can have symbolic constants as the size of an array. But the problem here is the dimensions will not be separated by comma. Here you can see there is a comma. So this is also incorrect. How should this be written? This should actually be written as float, the data type, then the name of the array. The name of the array is average. And then I have to mention, see, I don't have space here, so I'm writing it below. So I should write the first dimension as row and the next dimension as column, right? So this is how it's done. Great. Now, next one. Look at this. Char name 15. This is perfectly all right, right? So we have finally encountered a declaration which is syntactically perfect. So this is correct. This is correct. There's no issues here, right? So this is correct. Now let's look at this one. Now here, this is interesting. See, I have the data type, I have a valid identifier, but I have a pair of box brackets which is empty. So this is not allowed. You cannot leave the box brackets empty. You have to give it a value. You have to give it a positive integer value. So this is incorrect. Now let's look at number F. Here we have double, a valid built-in type, salary, a valid identifier. Then we have the pair of box brackets which denotes an array, and then we have row. So this is also fine, right? This is also perfectly okay, because row again represents a symbolic constant, and we know that the size of an array can be a symbolic constant as discussed in the previous video. So this takes care of number F. What about number G? Number G, look at this. The type is long int, no issues there. This is an identifier number, and again the size is denoted by a symbolic constant by the name of row. So this is also correct. Number H, look at this, int array. Now there is a space and then there is X. So this identifier array X, is incorrect. Since the identifier is incorrect, the entire declaration will also be incorrect. So this is syntactically incorrect. Now let's look at this one. See, this is interesting. Now look at number I. A data type, valid built-in data type, a valid identifier. Now the box brackets which denote that number is an array happen to be empty. What did I say just now? That I cannot leave the box brackets to be empty, but this is an exception. Why is it an exception? Because along with the declaration, I am also initializing my array. Now remember, when you're initializing an array, then we can leave the box brackets as empty. So how will the compiler understand the size? The compiler will simply count the elements one by one. So it will count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it will conclude that the size of this array number is 5. So remember, during initialization, mentioning the size is optional. So this is syntactically correct. Now let's look at number J. So float, a valid built-in type, item, a valid identifier. Now 2 dimensions, that means I am creating a matrix, right? This first dimension denotes the number of rows and the second dimension denotes the number of columns. And here I am giving the list of values. So what will happen here is, due to this statement, what will happen is, I will have a matrix of 3 rows. So how many rows? 1, 2, 3 rows. And how many columns? 2 columns. So this is my row 0, row 1, row 2. This is row 0, this is column 0, and this is column 1. Now see, how will these values go inside these cells? See, the first value is 0, so it will go row wise. These values will be inserted in this matrix. This matrix is known as item. And values inside these cells will go row wise. So the first value will go into the first cell. I'm going row wise, right? The first row, second row, third row. So right now I'm at first row. So 0 will go here. Then 1 will go here. First row complete. Then 2 will go here. 3 will go here. Then 4 will go here. 5 will go here. So this is how you initialize a 2D matrix. So this is also perfectly alright. And let's look at the last one. The last one says float result. So I'll just shift things around so that you can understand. I hope this is visible. So this is J is taken care of. Now float result of 10 equal to 0. Now this would have been correct had I enclosed my 0 within curly brace. See, I haven't enclosed my 0 within curly brace. That's why this is incorrect. Remember, we can have lesser number of values than the size. That means the size of this array is 10. But I can give it only one value, like it was done here. But that value has to be enclosed within curly brace. That value has to be enclosed within curly brace. Otherwise, the compiler will not understand that these values are to go inside the array. So this one is syntactically incorrect. What should have been the correct representation? We should have written float, then the name of the array. Sorry about that. The name of the array is result, and the size of the array is 10. And then within curly brace, I would write 0. So what would happen due to this statement? Due to this statement, an array of 10 locations would be created. An array of 10 locations. See, an array. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. An array of 10 locations would be created. And these 10 locations would be referred by a common name, which is the name of the array. In this case, it's result. And each of these indices, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on till 9. See, the first value, I've given only one value, right? 0. So 0 would go to the first location. What about the remaining cells? Since I have not given any values for the remaining 9 locations, and since this is a floating point array, the remaining 9 locations will get the default value of 0.0. So this is 0.0, 0.0, 0.0, and so on. Okay, so this was, I think this was a pretty comprehensive video on declaration and initialization. I hope the entire screen is visible right now. Okay, so you can make your notes, and if you have any doubts, please feel free to comment. I hope this helps. Thank you.